welcome to the 1L Club. This is your session on essay writing. Today we're going to give you a formula. In addition to that, we're going to go through the strategy, the things you need to know to make sure you are crushing this portion of your final exam. So let's go ahead and jump into it. First thing is our intro. All right, long form essay is a common testing format in law school and on the bar exam. Many of us come into law school with no experience with legal writing. That was me. All of us can take the proper steps to become proficient in this arena. So as we're going to learn here today, and as you probably have already heard a little bit leading up to this session, legal writing, essay writing for the exam is really unlike anything we've done before. Right? I was a business major in undergrad. I have never written any way like this before. A lot of us are coming from maybe an engineering background, a science background. There's very few things that prepare you for legal writing outside of legal writing. So all the paralegals out there, all the people that have been working in this space, maybe you do have a little bit already. But outside of that, understand that this is new and you have to really practice this new skill. Okay? So first off, let's talk about the essay's role in your final grade. So for most law school classes, the essay portion of the exam can be anywhere from 50 to 100% of your exam. I've had professors that don't believe in multiple choice, don't like multiple choice, and they'll make their entire final essay, okay? Then there are professors who will find some type of split between multiple choice and essay. So 75% essay, 25% multiple choice, 50-50. I don't think it really changes much on how you prepare, right? You need to be good at the law. You need to be good at essay writing and multiple choice. Obviously, for each class, know how you're going to be tested because that maybe does change towards the end of the semester what you prioritize as far as more time memorizing and what you're memorizing and things like that. So it's good to know. But yeah, here you are. It can be anywhere from 50 to 100% of your grade. All right, next is how to practice. All right, this is very important. Okay, so first off, you always want to look for professor-provided essay questions. This is the number one source, okay, the number one thing you're looking for. Now, there are some out there, some professors that will give you essay questions with sample answers. Those are ideal, right? Those aren't always perfect. Sometimes they are student written sample answers. Sometimes there's professor written sample answers. And you can't weigh those equally, but they still both rank pretty high. If it's a student written one, typically the professor will say, this is not 100% perfect, but this is a great example. Now, the thing about sample answers is that there's rules inside of that. There's organization on how the issues were discussed inside of all that. And all of that is like goodies that you need to be soaking up and putting into your outline and absorbing, right? Because everything about doing practice questions is seeing it once before so you're not figuring out how to do it later. And also you can compare the rules in your outline to the rules in the sample answers and change as needed when you see something that's better and or different in the sample answer. So those are always ideal. Again, not all professors will provide these. Then you have some with cut sheets. Cut sheets are simply going to have just the order of issues that you should have discussed. So that's the next best thing, right? So if this is a contracts essay, the cut sheet may say, first you have to talk about offer, then option contract, then 2205, then acceptance, then consideration, then statute of frauds, and done. And that should be your cut sheet. And it'll say how many points go to each one. So obviously that's still good. That really then can be used to help with your issue spotting, but it doesn't really provide much assistance on thoroughness of your arguments, on rules, on organization, maybe in detail and things like that. So those are cut sheets. And then lastly, some professors will give you essay questions in just the fact pattern. There's no guidance, there's no cut sheet, there's no sample answer. Not ideal, but again, at least you have an essay prompt from your professor that you can use. All right, so those are all the different types of scenarios if and when you get professor provided essay questions, right? So just out of curiosity, Ryan, have you already started to get a feel for which of your professors offer essay questions as far as practice?
We actually have started to. A lot of my professors say that they don't, but my torts professor just posted about 4 exams with fact patterns and sample answers, so I'm really excited to take a look at those this weekend.
Perfect, right? And so that's 4 right now. just we'll get to this in a bit, but by the end of the semester, how many of those 4 do you think you should have gone through, before you walk into the final?
Oh, absolutely all 4.
Absolutely all 4. It's an easy answer, all 4, and I can guarantee you that there's going to be people in your class that don't go through one of them, right? So can't stress the importance of doing all those. Now, Ryan, you illustrated exactly what I'm saying, right? So at your school, one professor towards is like already giving you a good amount, but you're saying some of your other professors are not providing you with any essay questions, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And so in those situations, you cannot say, well, my professor didn't give me any, so I'm not going to do any. You have to get the practice, right? And so that's where then we're going to go into these next best options when your professor doesn't give you any. So the first one I'm going to mention to you guys is the legally fit hypos, right? Shameless plug here. And so what we have are many essays that we've taken that are designed after multiple choice patterns, bar essay patterns, and what we provide with them is in-depth explanations on how you can organize it, the rules that go with this, and the rules in our wording, right? So obviously with anything outside of your professor providing it, you always want to double check organization and rule sentencing and rule structure. But this gives you something to go off of, right? Somewhere to start with, all right, these are what the essays can look like, or this is how it can be tested. All right. And then as another supplement or another option for going through practice questions is your state's bar's website. So pretty much every state's bar website will upload and release the previous administration's questions. And then they will also release student created answers, high scoring student created answers to those questions. And now again, I don't think those student questions and student answers are perfect. They're not designed to be perfect. Those weren't 100% scoring. So the idea is that some things you have to maybe scrutinize, but at the end of the day, it's still a really good indicator of like, all right, here are the things I needed to catch. Here are some accurate rules, right? Things like that. So Ryan, what are your thoughts? Any thoughts, questions, or concerns specifically on how to do practice?
No, to be honest, I think I feel pretty good about like resources right now. So thank you.
Good. So again, number 1, always professor provided essay questions. Next, you want to look into the world of supplements. Legally fit practice hypos are a great source. And then we also have the bar website. Essay questions, what to know. So first off, the difficulty is in the simplicity. Right? A little play on words there, a little oxymoron, but that's exactly what it is. You have to spell things out and connect the dots on what might seem obvious. You have to stay disciplined and within the scope of the rule. Deja, what did you have for lunch today?
I went to Panera for lunch today, so I had a Chipotle chicken pizza
Chipotle.
and a chai tea.
And a chai tea. Okay, cool. Oh, it was good. All right. So this is a quick little example of got to stay disciplined. And I would say that was pretty much an 8 out of 10, right? I didn't ask how good it was, right? And arguably, I may not have asked where you went. I just wanted to know, what did you eat for lunch? So what you ate for lunch was, what'd you say again? Was a barbecue? I forgot.
The Chipotle chicken pizza.
The Chipotle chicken pizza. Look, that right there, boom. That was within the scope of that rule or that question. Chipotle chicken pizza, right? But look at the little extras that are in there. Maybe it's not too bad, again, with the beginning part of where she went, but definitely telling me how it was. So it's that level of pinpointness that you have to have with these questions. And Deja, can we relate to either the friend or family member, and you'll say, hey, what'd you have for lunch today? And it's like, well, shoot, for dinner last night, I had chicken, that kind of upset my stomach a little bit. So today I decided to take it light, and that's why I ended up eating a salad today. Something like that sound familiar?
Yes.
Right? And so that, and again, this funny way that I'm delivering it to you guys is an example of what some of us will do on these essay questions. It'll ask you whether or not a reasonable person would have done X, and you'll start talking about whether a subjective person thought X was okay, or why a reasonable person would have done Y, right? Once you start getting into actual practice, we'll see that sometimes it can be difficult to stay honed in on the exact question, and you just want to keep doing that, right, repeatedly, instead of kind of answering the whole thing or getting ahead of yourself in your analysis. All right, so that's everything about staying disciplined within the scope of the rule. And again, as we're going to see here, you have to spell things out. All right, next, there is no penalty for plagiarism. All right, so let me stick with Deja on this one. Deja, have you heard anything so far about plagiarism in law school, or kind of run into any kind of thoughts around plagiarism? This is the first time you're hearing this come up. Give me some feedback.
Um, we have they talk a lot about the honor code.
Yep.
But plagiarism, it's more when they talk about it, it's more like you can't work with friends, or like you can't use other friends' outlines and things like that, like other people from all that stuff. But I think plagiarism here is probably more connected to when you're looking at your sources.
Mm-hmm. So let me separate this too from your legal writing course, because there is plagiarism, and your essay writing for final exams. When you are doing your legal writing course and writing your paper, if you are taking something from a source, you have to cite it. So this is not applicable at all. There is, in fact, still plagiarism with your paper, right? Your legal writing paper. When it comes to your essay, your final exam, and you have a fact pattern and that's it, and you're writing your answer, what I need you to do is reverse the years of conditioning of you have to find your own way to put those words into your own words. I actually want you to eliminate that skill, because in fact, it is actually desirable for you to go and grab the verbatim rules and then grab the verbatim facts and put those together and then add a statement of thought if needed to kind of like make it all make sense. But I don't want to hear, right, you give me your own version of the rule. Here's one quick example from my experience to bring this home. I was doing a Civ Pro midterm, and in the fact pattern, it said that there was an earth-shattering earthquake, and that was why this person was suing, blah, blah, blah. I can't remember all the details. In my answer, Deja, I wrote, blah, 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 because there was an earthquake. On that analysis, let's say it was worth 6 points. I got 4 out of the 6. But I thought I deserved a full 6 out of the 6. So I go to the professor and I say, yo, what's up? Like, you said, talk about the earthquake. I talked about the earthquake. Why don't I have all the points? Well, he said, in my answer, as you see here, in the facts, it said it was an earth-shattering earthquake, and you simply put earthquake. I said, oh, okay. I see how you playing this. All right, so, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I see how you like it. Okay, I see how this game works. So now I'm going to give it to you exactly how you want it. And I never had a problem again after that. So that's the story, again, of how meticulous this is and attention to detail you have to be with using the verbatim facts. All right, next, majority of the points are in the analysis, not the conclusions. You have to flesh out the arguments that the parties will make and how that leads to the outcome or conclusions. Your primary goal is to demonstrate your ability to make the logical arguments that the parties would make in court. Your secondary goal is to demonstrate your ability to determine the likely outcome / conclusion. So again, a lot of us are smart. We're coming in law school. We're smart. We know what we know. It's natural for us to be obsessive over who's going to win. Is this going to be a contract? Yes or no? Is this person going to be liable for this tort? Yes or no? Right? Where on the essay, those conclusions ultimately are important, and making conclusions are important, but they're nowhere near as important as your ability to flesh out the arguments that all the parties are going to make. So, like they say in life, right? It's more about the journey than the destination, right? In this, it's more about the analysis than it is the conclusion. So don't rush through that. Appreciate that. And when it comes to conclusions, I'll tell you there are a few scenarios, right? Deja, are you in torts? I know you got to remind me every week.
Yes.
Okay, Deja, if I right now came over there and said, what, you had Chipotle barbecue pizza and didn't get me none, and I, boom, smacked you in the face, is that going to be a battery?
Yes.
Absolutely, yes. So if anybody were to conclude on their essay that that was not a battery, then that's going to be an issue, right? Because that's a very clear-cut scenario with a very clear-cut outcome that if you conclude the other way, you're demonstrating that you don't know the law very well. So those are those scenarios where it's a slam dunk outcome and you have to conclude correctly. Now, there are a lot of times where the outcome is actually gray. And then therefore, it doesn't even matter which side you conclude. You could say yes or you could say no. It's all about the arguments. All right. So maybe that situation is, you know, we're sitting down playing and I got a grape in my hand and I'm tossing it up in the air and it lands on Deja, but it says I was kind of hoping that it did hit her, but at the same time I didn't want to, or right. Let's just say I throw all these facts in there that kind of make it a little muddy. Well, there it's just like argue both sides, conclude however you want. It doesn't really matter. Okay. So again, moral of the story: sometimes you have to conclude a certain way if it's a slam dunk issue, but a majority of the time, or majority of the points are in issues where there is no clear outcome. You don't even have to stress over the outcome. You just argue both sides and then pick the one that you think has the stronger side. Okay, now let's move on to why students struggle with essay writing. Number one, they don't know the law well enough. Remember, that's half the battle, and that's the first half of the battle. You have to come to the battle equipped with your sword and your shield and all your materials to get ready for this. And if you don't know the law well enough, then you can't write on it if you don't know it. All right, don't forget, Legally Fit is a great resource to make sure you're establishing that foundational understanding of the law. Next, students struggle with essays when they have poor reading comprehension. You have to read carefully and analyze only the facts that you have. Students, you all, are notorious for making up additional facts, missing and reading over important facts, and not reading the entire essay prompt. All of these can turn an A student into a B or C student by making small, simple mistakes. All right? Reading comprehension is extremely important. And then lastly, they didn't do enough practice. I just brought this issue up with Ryan a second ago. I said there's going to be people in that torts class that he has that's not going to touch one of those 4 practice essays that they've been given. Every year, students don't do it. And it's not because every student out there is lazy. It's because it's so hard to find the time to do that. You have so many cases to read and brief for. You're going to class. You have all of these constant deadlines with your legal writing class, right? But you have to find the time to do practice essays because of how connected they are to your success. All right. Ryan, coming back to you from one of our earlier sessions, right? As we get later into the semester, where should we naturally pull from to find time to do practice essays?
I'm not even gonna lie, DeAndré. I'm blanking so hard just because you picked me. I'm so sorry.
It's all good, man. Deja, you remember?
Case briefing.
Case briefing, good, right? So when we get to the case briefing, right, it's one of those things that you have a lot of it to do, and it's not always going to correlate to the strongest grade, right? So keep up with it, do it. But if I'm running short on time and I need to find some time to do essays, that's the first place I want you to consider pulling from. Awesome. All right, next, let's go ahead and see if we can put some of what we learned into practice. And we're going to see what a thorough analysis looks like. I want everybody here to give this a go. From all of my people who have been going to the 1L Club since the beginning, you should recognize this hypo. All right, let's give it to you one more time. Larry, a Los Angeles Lakers fan, and Chris, a Boston Celtics fan, get into a verbal altercation over which team is better. Frustrated, Chris decides to be the bigger person and walks away while Larry continues to yell. Larry then proceeds to take out his phone and throws it at the back of Chris's head. It connects and hits Chris. Chris is now suing Larry. Okay? That's our fact pattern, right? For all those that aren't taking torts, please can still do this essay. Today is not about the law. Today is about, if I give you the rule, which I'm about to do, and I give you the facts, can you thoroughly analyze? So whether or not you're in torts, this is a great exercise. So we've already talked about it before. The torts that would be triggered here are assault and battery. For today, we're just going to analyze assault and a portion of it only. And so here's a quick overview, right, of the elements. You have intentional, causation, reasonable apprehension, immediate, harmful contact, or offensive contact. Those are your 5 elements. Okay? Now, the element that we're going to analyze today is reasonable apprehension. All right? This element is met when the plaintiff is aware of the defendant's conduct to the point where they are reasonably anticipating some harmful or offensive contact. Reasonable apprehension does not require that the plaintiff be fearful. So I want everybody to take 2 to 3 minutes to write out their own analysis with this rule and these facts. But everybody go ahead and start to think through with this rule and those facts, right? What would your analysis be, right? And there goes your facts. Patience. Did you get a chance to write out some analysis for me?
Basically, I went through and I said, was Chris demonstrating reasonable apprehension when Larry hit him in the back of the head? And I said that the rule is that Chris must be aware of Larry's conduct to the point where he is reasonably anticipating some harmful or offensive contact. And Larry's apprehension does not require that the plaintiff be fearful, that he is fearful. And then doing the analysis of it, I said that Larry took out his phone. I said Chris turned around, then Larry took out his phone and threw it at the back of Chris's head because at the moment of the phone made contact. At the moment that the phone made contact, Chris was not looking in the direction of Larry, who threw the phone. Because Chris did not see the oncoming attack, there was no apprehension, or it was less likely that there was apprehension on his part that would cause him to be fearful. And then I put, therefore, Chris did not have reasonable apprehension.
Okay.
Or most likely that he did not have reasonable apprehension.
Okay. Well, first off, I want to say you definitely made your challenge a little bit harder because I already gave you the rule and the heading. Mm-hmm. So there was no need for you to put that into the own words. And definitely it's not a task on your essay to change your rule and modify your rule to meet the scenario. So you were saying here the element is met if the plaintiff, and you put in the names, right? So if Chris was aware of Larry's conduct, right? So you don't have to do that.
Right. Yeah, I was just saying it when I did this because I was, like I said, I did bullet points, so I was kind of trying to read it.
Got it. But yeah, going through your analysis, I think there's a lot of good, okay? So instead of focusing on the good, I want to focus on the areas of improvement. But I think overall, that's a great first stab at doing this together. Now, what I want to comment on is that you gave me your analysis in the tone of a judge. I want you to always remember that I want you to give me the argument from the tone of arguments by the parties, right? And let me know which party is going to argue. But that's essentially what you're doing, is doing arguments. So that naturally then gets us out of being biased. That naturally gets us out of picking a side. And then it helps us flush out if and when we're going to do counter arguments, which we didn't have one here. But overall, I liked it. I think there's areas to clean it up, make it a little bit cleaner, and you're going to see exactly how we can do that here. But overall, I think that was really good. So thank you for sharing that. That's a very, very solid start. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate the feedback. That's good. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then let's just do one more before we go into our answer. Deja, can you go ahead and read your analysis that you came up with?
All right. I also did bullet points, so I'll try to put it together and stuff.
And so in the future, and out of curiosity, I won't call on both, but Deja, why did you opt for going through bullet points when I said do the analysis?
So I started off by breaking apart the rules. So I put the specific elements. So I took out that he had to be aware and that he had to be anticipating it, and then also that it had to be harmful or offensive contact. So I made those.
Got it.
And then I connected the facts to the elements of the rule.
So
and that's kind of how I put together my analysis.
Okay, so I like that, right? Because ultimately, when you do have a rule that has multiple components to it, you do want to actually do just that. Like, make sure you're hitting all the points. In here, though, I think this rule of mine is maybe a little bit on the wordy side. And ultimately, what are we looking for? Whether they reasonably anticipated some harmful or offensive contact. And then the other things are going to basically help prove that. This element is met when the plaintiff is aware of the defendant's conduct to the point where they are reasonably anticipating some harm, right? So I like that, but yeah, overall, right, let's make sure that, because some people actually will present their analysis in the format of bullet points. We don't want to do that, so we don't want to practice it, but by all means, go ahead and kind of read what your arguments are, what you had.
Okay, so the defendant? No. Okay, so I have that because Chris was walking away at the time that Larry took his phone out and threw it, he was not aware or able to anticipate the harmful contact of the phone hitting his head. And then I also said that there was harmful contact in the fact that the phone did hit his head, but the conclusion is that the element is not met because he could not, he was not reasonably apprehensive of the contact that was coming towards him. Would this work for something else? Probably, but not for assault.
So what are you doing there? You're telling me a little bit of what you had for dinner last night.
Right.
All right. So resist that urge, right? Because guess what? We're going to have a whole battery discussion later in this essay, Deja, where you're going to go through the fact that there was harmful or offensive contact, that they are in fact guilty of something else. And so you're wasting your time and watering down your analysis here by doing that right here. So resist that urge. You feel it, but just hold off on it, okay? And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if there was, let me ask you, does it matter if there was harmful or offensive contact for assault? No, it matters if the person was apprehensive of it. So that's all you need to analyze. So again, great example. If I ask you what you have for lunch, just give me lunch. Don't give me dinner the night before, breakfast, all those things. And again, chances are I'm going to be asking you about dinner and breakfast and all the other stuff at another point. So other than that, I loved your use of the facts that he was anticipating some harmful contact of, and you didn't just say harmful contact, you at least said what it was, the harmful contact of being hit in the head by the phone. That was really good. So I think you did a really good job of using verbatim facts and pointing to it. So that was good. The biggest thing I want you to do is stay inside those bumper lanes, right? And then that's practicing that conciseness that we want. So here's an example of the analysis that I have. So first off, right, let's just read through it. Here, Chris is going to argue that he reasonably anticipated being hit by Larry's phone because Larry threw the phone at him shortly after he walked away. So that was one thing we didn't get from the other side, from any of the submitted answers, was an argument on behalf of Chris of why this was assault. And you don't always do arguments on both sides, but under the circumstances, this would be an area of this essay to do an argument, right? Chris has to satisfy all these elements. I would make a quick argument on behalf of Chris, even though it's going to be losing. And then look at how I wrote the other side that we all did analyze. On the other hand, Larry is going to argue that Chris did not reasonably anticipate, verbatim from my rule, reasonably anticipate being hit by the phone because the facts state that Larry aimed at the back of Chris's head. That's just verbatim rules and verbatim facts I just paired together. Then I go into my statement of thought. This means that Chris did not see the phone coming in order to anticipate being hit. There are no facts to suggest that Chris heard the phone being thrown or had any other reason to be apprehensive of being hit by the phone in the back of the head. Conclusion, the court will likely find that this element is not met. That's one of my favorite things to use, right? Is like there are no facts to suggest. Everybody put that in your back pocket. I've almost used that on every single exam, right? At some point in my argument for something, there are no facts to suggest. Boom. So good. So to a couple of those points, patience, yes, when you're doing analysis, it should always start with here. here. That is your indicator that this is an analysis. Unlike this right here, this exercise, on your final, you can't label rule, analysis, conclusion. You can't do that. Like, you're going to be docked points. But you can soft indicate those sections by certain buzzwords, right? The buzzword for conclusion is the court will likely find. That lets me know this is the conclusion. Here is indicator of your analysis. On the other hand is the indicator for a counter argument. So give all those indicators for what it is, but you can't outright label it. And then next, patience. Look how my analysis starts again with, again, no really thought of my own. I go into who's going to argue it, and I'm going with Larry, right, in this counter argument. And then I'm going into the portion of the rule that he's going to argue. I say that Chris did not reasonably anticipate being hit by the phone. And then I go into because. That's a magic word. Because. And then I go into the facts. And not my version of the facts, right? The verbatim. Because the facts state that Larry aimed at the back of Chris's head. All of that was just, again, no thinking, me just grabbing the necessary components from the rule and the facts. And then after that, that's when I start to kind of unpack why, right, this is no apprehension in explaining it. There's no facts to suggest he heard it, you know, blah, blah, blah. So appreciate that, everybody, of the first part of your analysis is almost like a puzzle, right? And then you can get into the thinking and the breaking down. Out of those 5 elements and just taking a look at those, which of those elements seem to be the pivotal element, the element that this is going to come down to whether or not this was assault or not?
Absolutely. I think reasonable apprehension.
Yes. So for that reason, Ryan, since this is the main element, that is a factor in, I want to have a more flushed out discussion of then this more prioritized issue. And then on top of that, it's the strong argument is in the reason why this is not met for torts. If the plaintiff is trying to sue for something, they have the duty to prove all the elements. So, all right, let me just make the quick argument on behalf of the plaintiff, and then get into the strong counter argument by the defendant. Am I going to do a counter argument when I'm doing the analysis for intent? Ryan?
Sorry, I wasn't sure if you were asking.
Yeah, no worries.
You kind of can't in that respect, so.
Yeah, right, probably not, right? Don't force it, right? I'm probably not going to do a counter argument for causation either. So, again, it's like prioritized areas, I typically do a counter argument. When the facts present strong facts for a counter argument, I do a counter argument. I do want to just walk away with you knowing that it's not a do it every single time. And I also want you to understand too that I don't think any student, myself included, right, as a professor, is going to get 100% accuracy on every scenario where they should have done a counter argument. So don't aim for that expectation. But the idea is that you do get that 90% of the time of knowing when to do a counter argument. All right, that concludes our session today on essay writing. I hope you took notes on everything because essay writing is so critical. If you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Turn on those notifications so you can see whenever we're posting content that's going to help you be successful in law school. All right, y'all. I'll see you next time. Learn more about Legally Fit and Break into Law School in the description.